I'm going to call us to order. Jodine, have you taken attendance?
Yes.
Great. Next up, we have a vote for closed session for discussion of real estate and opinion of legal counsel. Can I get a motion for closed session?
So moved.
Second?
And we need a roll call vote.
Trustee Campbell?
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman?
Yes.
Trustee Solomon?
Yes.
Trustee Silva?
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau?
Yes.
All right, we are going to move to recess to closed session. We'll be back at 7 o'clock for our regular meeting. Thanks, everyone. Going to reconvene us to the regular meeting, call us back to order. Jodine, have you taken attendance?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of the agenda, approving the agenda, please say yes.
Yes.
Great. All those opposed? Agenda passes. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? Consent agenda passes. Jodine, are there any public comments?
No public comment.
Okay. Great. Next up, we have the recognition of Joyce Hunter for her participation with the Ann Arbor 200's Monuments Living History Art Projections in Wheeler Park. I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay, so I'd like to talk just for a minute about, you may remember the Monuments Project that was a partnership with the Ann Arbor Summer Festival from Australian creator Craig Walsh, who was visiting, and that was back right around the end of summer, like beginning of September, end of August in Wheeler Park, and it turned out beautiful. And when we were starting that project, there was a question of, well, who do we want to feature? You know, some towns have done a very major process to decide who their people were, but in our case, we wanted to choose people who the library and the Summer Festival had partnered with over the years, who maybe had not been as recognized as much as they tend to be, because of course partners sometimes are very much behind the scenes. So we knew immediately that Joyce was someone who we felt very strongly needed to be honored in this way. Joyce has done absolutely incredible work here in Ann Arbor and in Washtenaw County. She's a founding member of the board of the African American Cultural Historic Museum. She was a teacher at AAPS for many years and an administrator at AAPS as well. And also is currently the Rotary president. Is that right? Yes. So Joyce is absolutely everywhere. And we knew that for all the work that we'd done with AACHM over the years, Joyce has always been the glue and making sure that the library and the museum were working together very closely and that things kept moving and growing. So when it came time for that, it was a very obvious choice for us.
Wonderful.
So tonight we'd like to present Joyce with a photograph of her face on the tree at Wheeler Park. So we have that for her. And this is not a resolution, so this is just a moment on the agenda. So Joyce, if you'd like to come up and we'll take a picture here.
Oh, that's so nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Can we do one with the board too?
Yes, please.
Thanks for asking, Jim. I wanted to get in there.
Of course, any chance to like
Honor Joyce, let me say.
come stand there in front of you. That's good? Perfect. Thank you so much. There you go, Joyce. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your partnership over the years.
All right, wonderful. So next up, we have the financial report with Kayla.
Okay. All right, financial reports begin on the page marked 18. And so just to pull out a couple highlights here. So our general fund cash balance is just a little over $8 million. That covers about 8 months of expenses. For our tax receipts at this point, now we won't reconcile excess taxes above what we expected until the end of the fiscal year. But as of this moment, we've already received 100.1% of the budget, with still a quarter of the year left to go. So that's a good position to be in. Our unrestricted fund balance, that means the money that is not earmarked for anything else, $7.3 million. That's in addition to about the $2 million that we currently have in the capital fund, because that is not unrestricted. So that fund balance will fund about 4.4 months of operations. Our revenues, as realized through accrual, is 76.8% of budget after 75% of the fiscal year. That's where we like to be. Some of the categories have been coming a little faster than others, which is good to see. And our actual cash receipts, $22.6 million. That's with our deferred revenue and accounts receivable factored in. Actual year-to-date expenditures, 67% of budget after 75% of the fiscal year. So we are on track to have some surplus at the end of the year that we will be able to move into the capital fund or whatever the board chooses to do with it. Just to touch on, to skip over to page 22, that last column is what we're often looking at. At 75% of the year, you want your revenues to be over 75% and your expenditures to be under. So we're a little over 76.8% of revenue, which is mostly driven through unexpected library fines, fees, and other non-resident fees, but a big part of that, which doesn't show up as a percentage, is investment gains. We only budgeted to receive $50,000 in investment income, and it's actually been about $330,000. That will also be something that we budget for very conservatively in the next fiscal year, because who knows where our investment, because we cannot invest in securities, only in bonds.
Right.
So that will be coming, so that will be, again, very conservatively budgeted in the next fiscal year. When you look at our expenditures, we're at 68% on staffing costs, which is a great place to be. Then we have our copier expense running a little over, but again, a very small line item. Legal expense will not quite over, but will probably need an adjustment at the end of the year. Postage a little bit over again on a small line item. Purchase services is running a little bit over, so that's something that we will definitely need an adjustment for. It's already run over the budget for the year. We'll talk more about that when we actually ask you for an adjustment. Repairs and maintenance, just a little ahead, but pretty much on track. Software license a little bit ahead, and utilities a little bit ahead. This is our first year operating the ALF with all of its full systems, so we were doing kind of a guess on utilities, so we're not surprised to see an adjustment there. So that is the financial report. Any questions about any of that?
How did we make so much on bonds if it's bonds? Like,
Well, it's basically because it catches up when you have a bad year when the inflation is high. You know, it's basically, this is closer to what we normally expect. But when the inflation is high, then it decreases your bond yield. Sometimes it even goes negative. So coming off of a much more inflationary year when we actually, that line, the value of our bond investments actually fell last year. So then when things start to normalize, it catches up, the yield curve catches up. So that's a good situation to be. But yes, it's all because of bonds. So the library cannot invest in securities.
other questions?
The library programming, is that because summer game is so much of the budget there?
Yes, you mean why it's only at 48%?
Yeah.
Yes. It is, we have run very well on that line overall. A lot of it comes in summer, but we do expect that line to come in under budget, and it will actually be a little bit less in next year's fiscal year, or next year's budget proposal. Mostly because we went very big and we were able to find many ways to economize, and partners stepped up and things like that. So we've spent a little less than we were expecting at the beginning of the year. Also, we're kind of running out of space. You know, it's like when all of our rooms are booked, you know, that does impact our ability to keep doing new things.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions about financial reports?
Okay, great. Thanks, Eli. Next up, we have committee reports. First is the executive committee. So our last executive committee meeting, we mostly talked about the resolution that we're going to see later tonight, which mirrors the city council resolution about the library lot and plans for the library lot if the proposals A and B pass. We also talked a little bit about some staffing changes, and that was about it. Next up, we have the budget and finance committee.
Thank you. Budget and Finance Committee did meet. We spent the entirety of that meeting discussing the draft of the proposed budget for 2025-2026, which is also an item of discussion later tonight under new business.
Great, thanks. And next up, we have Facilities Committee.
Which did not meet since the last board meeting.
All right, thanks, Scott. Next up, we have the Library Report with Eli.
Okay, so we'll bring up on the screen, here's this month's monthly report. So for our stat of the month, I wanted to look at utilization of the downtown library. So this is a chart that just shows March for the past 4 years. The green bars are the number of bookings. That includes library bookings, and that includes patron room bookings. In March, it was about 100 library events, so about 215 of those are patron bookings. What you can kind of see here, first of all, we continue to have more door count, but we're also starting to see the effects of all the spaces being booked. In that the growth is slowing a little bit because the spaces aren't available when people are looking for them to be available. One of the things that we've recently decided to do, which is just getting rolling, is to take the former computer training center on the 3rd floor and basically turn it into a second free space. It doesn't get good use as a computer training center anymore. We tend to meet that need through other ways. But what we could use is another meeting room because free space is very frequently completely booked on the weekends. And then, some groups have other times when they want to meet, and often those rooms are just flat out not available. So adding a second room up there will be a very inexpensive solution to be able to add a little bit more capacity there. But you can see here this continues to grow, and the door count continues to grow as well, and it's just we're bursting at the seams. Any questions about that? Okay. So here's our event review for this past month. Record Store Day had an attendance of 3,551. That's up over 2,474 in 2024. Gardening and Farm Fest had 3,922 attendees. That's up from 2,724 in 2024. So both of those had almost 1,000 people, more than 1,000 people more through the door compared to the prior year. Upcoming festivals and expos, we've got Visions, our assistive technology fair, coming up on June 4th. A2CAF, the Comic Arts Festival, coming up on June 14th and 15th. Our special guests this month will be Raina Telgemeier and Scott McLeod, as well as Tony, what is Tony's last name? Tony has a terrific book. Tony Weaver, thank you very much. Tony Weaver. He will be also in attendance, so the three of them will be a great addition to that event. We will, because of the Raina and Scott factor, be having the opening event at the Michigan Theater. We no longer have a space that is capable of holding the audience that turns out to see them. So that will be happening on June 14th and 15th. Make Music Day is coming up on June 21st. We got some great engagement on this so far. People can host concerts at their homes or businesses all throughout town. We've got lots of places that have signed up so far, and that will all be coming together over the next couple weeks. And then we have the Lego contest August 3rd and a new festival, Anime Arbor, on August 16th. And we're looking forward to that one. I think we have a very special guest for that. Can I announce the special guest, or are we not announcing the special guest yet? Sungwon Cho, also known as ProZD, who's a very famous online person, will be our guest of honor at that event, and I am super excited to get to meet Sungwon. So he is a very cool guy, has been doing a lot of voiceover work, and is a bit of a YouTube star. So he will be our big star for Anime Arbor. We're excited to meet him. All right, for May events, we've got Star Wars Day on May the 4th, of course. That's going from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the downtown library. And then a week later, Star Wars A New Hope, dubbed in Ojibwe. Also known as Anishinaabe Mawin, but the agreement with Lucasfilm is very particular that you have to say dubbed in Ojibwe. So that is how we will be describing it. But yes, that is a new dub of A New Hope, fully dubbed by Ojibwe voice actors, performing all the roles. And we're very excited about that. That'll be Sunday, May 11th. Jocelyn Benson will be having an event on Monday, May 12th at 6:30 p.m. And then on Saturday, May 17th, Chasen Buttigieg will be releasing his new children's book, Papa's Coming Home, on May 17th at 6:30 p.m. in the downtown library. So we're looking forward to that one. We do not believe that Pete will be in attendance. Let the record show. All right, here's a quick service update for you. The downtown lobby shops applications are going to open on Monday, May 5th. They'll close on Sunday, June 1st, so people have almost a month to apply. They'll be for 6-month agreements with an optional 6-month extension. The 2 small spaces will rent for $100 a month. The 1 larger space will be $250 a month. And the spaces will be offered in order as determined by a group of staff who volunteered to review all the applications and determine who should be offered spaces first, looking to both work with, proven known entities in the community that have some experience with this, and also have some opportunities for some new people to get some business in there. So it'll be a 6-month agreement with an optional 6-month extension if the library decides to offer one. Otherwise, the space will turn over, and then we will post it again when we're ready to have another space turn over. So that will be aadl.org/lobbyshops is where you can go to apply, and we will do some social and some press release when this actually goes live next week. Any questions about that?
Can you say more about who you're hoping is going to apply?
Small arts businesses, small creative businesses, a retail shop. It does not need to be handmade stuff. Some of our criteria, we want to make sure that they're going to have a good number of hours a week when they would be open. Their schedule is up to them, but we don't want to have a person in the space that's only open 1 day a week or something like that. So that will certainly factor into our decision making of how many hours they plan to be open. But we're hoping for some creative businesses. They can't do anything too fumey, right? And they can't prepare food. So if they are selling food, it either needs to be prepared in a commercial kitchen or being sold in compliance with Michigan's cottage food law. So that will be up to them, but we'll see what we get. I'm not entirely sure, but we're really looking forward to seeing what businesses would like to try to operate in downtown Ann Arbor. I mean, we are operating just about the busiest building in downtown Ann Arbor. So this is a great opportunity for people to get some foot traffic. All right. So AADL in the community, this past few weeks saw the winners announced for our Write On Kids Writing Contest and the It's All Right Teen Contest. We had over 100 entries for the kids contest, more than 400 for the teen contest. Finalists and winning entries included titles like The Puffball of Doom, The Girl with the Storm Cloud Eyes, The Mouse Mage, Everything is Either Too Much of Not Enough, A Backyard Memory, Brothersaurus, and The Bullied Woolly. So you can read the winners online, and you can go to /itsallright or /write on. And thank you very much to Allison Jones, and Elizabeth Wallin for running those wonderful events. All right, here's our staff spotlight for this month. This is George Hudson, who works on our safety team. He's been with AADL for 11 years. He first joined in 2004 as a part-time safety assistant, then was promoted to full-time in 2006. Then he rejoined AADL as a part-time bookshelver and processor in July 2009, and in 2016 returned as a part-time security assistant. And here's what he says. I have a very extensive and strong background in this profession that ranges from my past employers, training, and education. But the single most significant learning tool that has continuously brought me success and that I continue to exercise is a piece of literature known as Verbal Judo, The Gentle Art of Persuasion by George J. Thompson, PhD, and Jerry B. Jenkins. I truly believe the concept that everyone wants to be heard, and I jumped at the opportunity to own my very own copy, and I also think the author has a cool name. So thank you to George. George does a great job, works on weekends a lot, and has handled a lot of challenging situations and does a beautiful job every time. So thank you to George. All right, and also it's National Volunteer Month, so we wanted to honor one of our volunteers. This is Mary Kupek Adams, 3 years and more than 342 hours of volunteer time and counting. She says, I've been volunteering with AADL for over 3 years. I think I started as a way to give back to the community for the programming and media access my family enjoys. Since then, it blossomed into making many community connections via vendors and patrons at the Tiny Expo, Whopper, A2CAF, Gardening and Farm Fest, Summer Game Packing, and many more. As a bonus, the Fiber Expo reignited my interest in weaving and other creative outlets. I enjoy helping event patrons discover new activities and seeing generally happy reactions. Thank you for the qualifier. The AADL volunteer community has become a valued part of my retirement makeup. And Shoshana Harand, who's our volunteer coordinator, says that when Mary is signed up for an event, she can say, oh, great, now I know everything will be fine. Because Mary does a terrific job. So thank you to Mary. All right, here's our mention of the month from Ann Arbor Meals on Wheels. We're feeling extra thankful today for our friends at the Ann Arbor District Library and the many ways they support our community, including our neighbors who are homebound. Thanks for making our lives better, AADL. And they had a lovely post on Facebook, and I think it was just Facebook. Compliment of the month. Patron called to say thank you to the library workers who had tried to help him find a song earlier today and to tell them that he had found it, Woman, Woman by Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. He was very appreciative and wished them and everyone at the library a happy Easter. So that was a very nice phone call. Here's our complaint of the month. Patron said they've been coming here for 40 years and was upset about the state of cell phone usage in the library and wished us to behave similarly to the U of M Law Library, which confiscates phones, displays a sign near the front door explaining the cell phone ban, and also to use one of the new rooms that is earmarked to local business incubators instead as a designated cell phone use room. So that was a comment at the downtown library on April 3rd. And thank you. So that's our monthly report for April 2025. Any questions about any of that?
Does the law library actually confiscate phones?
Yeah, you're not allowed to take them in.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting.
I've not ever seen a public library attempt that. Special libraries sometimes attempt that. But yeah, I don't see that happening here. Sorry.
It's my understanding that this library is sort of zoned so that the quiet spaces are up high and the more noisy public spaces are down below.
On a good day, that's exactly how it works.
In consideration of all the needs of all the members of our community.
Yes. All right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Eli. Next up, we have an update on rezoning and redevelopment of the downtown library.
Okay, this is me again. Just a very quick update for you. So the current information that we have is that the first reading of our rezoning request at City Council will happen at their regular meeting on May 5th, Monday, May 5th, and that then they will have their second reading and vote on Monday, June 2nd. That is subject to change. We won't really know for sure until the agendas drop for those meetings the Friday before. We will keep you posted, but at this moment, when the went very well at Planning Commission, we're not expecting any big bumps in the road at this point, and so that will be happening May 5th and June 2nd, and then we should have rezoning of this site. And that's the update there.
Great, thanks, Eli. Questions? Okay, next up, new business. We have the EPIC MRA survey presentation with Kelly Sullivan.
All right. Many of you may remember John Kavanaugh worked with us for many years, and he has retired and left us in Kelly's very capable hands. So let me get your slides up here.
Thank you very much. Yes, John is happily retired and traveling and just living his best life. So I've had the pleasure of working on all the projects. This is the 6th in the series that we've had the pleasure of working with the library on, but more behind the scenes. So today, you're more or less stuck with me in person. With that, we'll move on to the next slide. So primarily, what I'd like to focus on today are the top-line results of the instant study and where it applies compared to how those trends might have moved over the prior years. The most recent survey was done in 2023, tracking resident satisfaction with the services. But a lot of the survey that we embarked on in spring of 2025, very new lines of questioning, as you will see as we go through the slides. And I will point out where I can, the real highlights of that. As in the past, the survey was done doing live telephone operator interviews only. Someone called each respondent that answered the survey. 81% of those interviews were done via cell phone. As you can imagine, that is trending up over the years. Data collection went smoothly between the dates of March 11th and the 15th. And this year, we sampled 500 qualified respondents that reside within the AADL taxable jurisdiction. That results in a margin of error of 4.4 points with a degree of confidence of 95%. What we do is we hold the quotas regionally and also by ward within the city of Ann Arbor. That will come into play specifically later in a later slide when we talk about some specific Ann Arbor city issues that we tested in the instant survey. We also hold quotas strictly by gender and by age. So for the instant study, 33% of the respondents were under the age of 35, 24% between 35 and 49, 21% 50 to 64, and 22% age 65 or older. Some of the more questions that we ask, for example, this first one we ask if the respondents are currently enrolled in higher education. You can see a slight decline in the respondents this time saying they were not enrolled, with a slight increase, 11% of the respondents currently enrolled in the university, with 2% enrolled in community college or a technical certification program. We also ask years of residence. Respondents in 2025, slightly up, 74% have been residing where they are currently, whether that's in this city or one of the outlying townships that the library serves, have been here for more than 10 years. Another 13% coming in close at 6 to 10. That dovetails with the next question when we ask, do you intend to stay in the area? Pretty static results over the past 2 years. 3/4 of the respondents intend to stay in the area for the foreseeable future. 17% said they may move eventually, and only 6% said they plan on leaving this year. I attribute that to being a slightly higher representation of university students in the 2025 survey itself. Then we get into asking questions about perception of taxes. When it comes to state government, residents in the area in 2025, 61% feel they're about right versus 30% saying that they are too high. This is for state government. Moving on, we say, well, how about local government? 53% saying about right and 38% saying too high. So there's almost a 10-point difference between the perception of state taxes at about 30% being too high versus local taxes at almost 40% being too high. Then we start asking specifically to rate, in a general sense, the services and offerings that the library system offers. You can see a very high satisfaction rate, 90% total satisfied, with the highest ever recorded excellent rating, that's the best rating they could give, at 60% of all respondents. So, excellent job. Among the very few respondents that offered a negative rating, negative ratings in this case being just fair or poor, in 2025, only 1% of all 500 respondents said fair, and only 1% said poor. In 2023, 2% said fair, and 1% said poor. The main reason? They're concerned about the limitations on physical books in the library. You can see that's been the top response, but by only 4, and then in 2023, 6 individuals. Then we ask about the perception of taxes for the AADL services. You can see over time, it's been at about 70% feeling that they're just right, a slight uptick in 2025 to 18% of respondents saying too high. I wouldn't take that entirely personally, however, that is something that we are seeing statewide in every municipality, every school district. Everybody is fearful of their wallets. We then ask to describe how often you visit the library, physically or online. And notably, at over half of the respondents in 2025 said they are here at least once a month or more, and a quarter of them said they're here at least once a week. So that is up in attendance from 2023, and when I was spying some of the slides you were talking about earlier, that seems to comport with what's actually occurring with people coming and going from the library.
Yeah, on this one, I was particularly pleased to see the 15% drop in people who say they have never accessed the library services in the past few years. That's always the hardest thing to work on as a library, is to get new people into the fold. So we're very pleased to see that.
So whatever's happening appears to be working. As we have in the past years, we ask the respondents in an open-ended question, describe the top services for them. And we allow multiple responses. And none of these are read. We just group them later, just top of mind. Again, the top number 1, physical books, or the library having a wide collection. That dovetails somewhat with the concerns earlier among those very few respondents that had concerns. Physical books is what they were concerned about. Followed by children's events and programs offered at the library at 7% each, followed by ebooks or the Libri program, and computers, access to printers, copiers, fax at about 5%. And then you can see the breakdown as it continues. There were many others that were cited maybe once or twice, but if I was to draw your attention to each and every single one of these, we'd be here all day. So then we ask, in the past year, have you or another household member visited the library, quote unquote, for 3 different circumstances? The first one being, have you visited the actual physical downtown library? 56% of respondents said they have, with nearly 30% saying more than one person in their household has visited the downtown library. Then we ask about attending a concert or an event. Almost a third of the respondents have done so, with 17% more than one person in their household having attended a concert or an event within the past year at the library. And similarly, attended a festival or expo, again, nearly 30%, with that same 17% of household members having attended a festival or an expo put on by the AADL within the past year. Then we asked, just to get a sense, when you do visit the library, is this the destination, or are you visiting here and also coming downtown to do other things? So, Nearly 1/4 of the respondents said they either never or seldom go elsewhere, meaning when they come downtown, the library is their destination. However, nearly 50% said either most of the time or all the time, this is part of their trip, not the sole destination for their visit when coming downtown. We asked a question about respondents' interest in meeting new people when they come to library events. Over 50% said they were at least somewhat, if not very interested in meeting new people, kind of a social aspect, when attending events at the library.
And we asked this question because we're starting to get into some events that are more explicitly designed around forming social connections, which is something that we're seeing a lot of demand for. And we wanted to see, measure that and have a sense of what percentage of people would respond in this way. And it was very, not surprising, but sort of ingratiating to see people are wanting to use their library this way, at least somewhat. So in our events, we've been doing a series called Let's Be Friends, which isn't really a library program. We just set aside the room and like an icebreaker and say, this week is for LGBT, or this week is for RPG players, or that kind of stuff, right? And we have found some really great audiences turning up for these, and all we do is open the room. So it's a pretty great library program. So, sorry to interrupt there, Cal.
No, I appreciate you jumping in because you have the background information I don't have about the new offerings and the events that are being put on. Speaking of new offerings and events that are being put on, we then asked respondents again in an open-ended question, describe the types of events that you would like to see hosted by the library to save travel time, up to an hour away that you might otherwise attend. And similarly to the prior open-ended question, we allowed respondents to give us up to 2 things that they said. A quarter of the respondents said nothing. There's nothing that the library doesn't already provide that we would like to see offered. However, the one standout was at 11%, live musics, concert series, etc., followed by 8% saying speakers, lectures, seminars, and another 6% saying authors, book readings, book signings being hosted at the library. That's what they would like to see to the extent it's possible to offer them should you expand programming and offerings at the library. When it comes to reserving meeting space, among those that did attempt to, was 65 individuals out of the 500, or 13%. 95% of them said that they were able to reserve their requested space for the size, the date, and the time that they desired on their first try. So that's just excellent. Similarly, nearly a quarter of the respondents report having come to the library specifically due to unforeseen events like power outages or school closings, and having a safe haven or a place that has internet access or heat and power for that matter during those times. Nearly a quarter of respondents said that they have. Then we got into a battery of potential offerings that could be included in a new downtown library. Every respondent heard each and every one of these, but we rotate the order of presentation just to minimize, if not completely eliminate, the potential for presentation bias. We don't always want to start with kids' room. However, kids' room was the most viewed as total important by nearly 3/4 of the respondents, followed by 2/3 of the respondents saying a safe place for the kids to play outside. Over half said AV studios for public use. Over half said art galleries featuring local and traveling exhibits is something that they would like to see offered. Over half said an outdoor event space, which does make sense when the most desired thing that the library could offer would be outdoor concerts and things like that. 50% said a local history reading room. Almost 50% said larger, more comfortable event spaces. 46%, a large venue for performances, plays, and music events. 41%, a cafe. From there, the level of importance drops off somewhat from 41% saying rehearsal space for music, theater, and dance, all the way down to 23% for retail space for small businesses, which, as I think I overheard earlier, is something that's going to be offered anyway.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see how that changes after we've had that in place for a while.
Again, as a follow-up, we asked in an open-ended question after hearing that list, is there anything that we missed? Are there any other amenities or services that you think we should be offering in a new downtown district library? Nearly 2/3 said nothing. A couple of the ones that garnered more than 1 or 2 individual responses were handicap amenities or access, services for visually and hearing impaired, followed by more, better computers, faster internet, followed by parking, which I don't know what you do about when you're located downtown, followed by private study, computer rooms with doors so they could be insulated. And the rest of the responses, 15% of them were just one response here, one response there, and another 13% undecided. So nearly 3/4 of the respondents had nothing in mind for something that had not already been proposed that the library could offer. As in years past, we present questions about the possibility of the library partnering with housing development to enhance services, to minimize the costs of new offerings, new construction, et cetera. Near identical support as it was when we asked in 2023. 45% this year said they strongly support it. 47% said in 2023 they strongly support it, with a near equal 30% saying that they somewhat support the idea of co-development for library expansion. Then we asked, well, if the library was to do that, what type of housing would you like to see provided? In 2023, over half said a mix of age and income type of housing. That's down a little bit, 43% this year. What is up this year, 22% of the respondents said they'd like to see low-income housing as part of a co-development. And what is also up over 2023 is senior housing and availability, should the library enter into a co-development partnership. From there, we got into the two specific proposals that are likely to be on the ballot in August of 2025. These questions were only asked of the Ann Arbor City residents across all wards, the first one being the charter amendment, and then the second one authorizing the transfer of the parking structure to the library to build the mixed-use development that's been proposed. I did want to note that among the Ann Arbor City respondents that were asked this question, 96% of them were registered voters. So, knowing that in order for either of these proposals to pass, both would actually have to pass on the ballot, and that was explained to the respondents. Nearly 3/4 of the respondents said that they would support it, 45% strongly. Only 16% said that they would oppose it, 11% strongly, and the rest, the other 11% were undecided on the issue. So very strong, positive findings going forward, looking at those August 2025 issues that will be on the ballot in August in the city. Kind of dovetailing into that, respondents were asked, generally speaking, do you favor or oppose the construction of new, tall, multi-unit housing buildings in downtown Ann Arbor? That wasn't posed as the library is going to do it, but just generally, how do you feel about it? Nearly 60% said they would support it, 31% strongly. About a third of the respondent individuals said that they would oppose it, 22% strongly. From there, we get into asking about where you get information about your local community, not the library specifically, but just generally the local community. Word of mouth is up by 2 points in 2025. MLive, Ann Arbor News, is down 7 points over 2023 in 2025, with a big increase of online searches, online news at 14%, and the rest of them fairly static. Social media coming in at 13%, the Ann Arbor Observer at 10%, TV and radio staying pretty static at 7% and 6% respectively. New question this year, among those that said that one of their top sources of information is social media, and again, they were allowed to give up to 3 in the prior question. 36% of social media news receivers said Facebook is their primary site, followed by Instagram at 19%, Reddit at 16%, Twitter X at 10%, Nextdoor at 9%, TikTok at 7%, and 2% on the relatively new Blue Sky. We also asked if any of the respondents had barriers to reading, such as trouble reading standard size print or holding a physical book. Only 7% of the respondents reported that they or someone in their household has that particular issue. 4% of the individual respondent, 1% said someone else in the household, and 2% said yes, more than one of us do have trouble doing those things. And then near the end of the survey, we asked, and it was phrased, would you recognize, if you saw it, the black and white AADL logo? It's the only description that we gave. 72% of the respondents said that they would recognize it. So brand recognition is looking really good. And among everybody, over a quarter of the respondents that took the survey own merchandise, AADL merchandise, whether it's the form of a shirt or a mug or a magnet or a bookmark. They reported owning something that they purchased with that logo on, representing AADL. And that is my overview of the findings, which I must remark are very favorable towards the library. And I'm pleased with them. I hope you are very pleased with them. I like to see that things are trending up over the years. As I hinted at earlier, I've been doing this with John since we started way back in 2012, I believe you, a little bit behind the scenes. And it's always encouraging to see the community and Ann Arbor not only respond positively to these questions about the library, but to see that positivity increasing over the years. We don't see it falling off. So that compliment aside, I'd like to answer any questions that you might have.
What surprised you the most? I think for me, I'm so encouraged by all the momentum that we have with the library in our community. I think the way people are digesting their news about the library was actually quite surprising to me. What was your largest moment of shock, I'll say?
Frankly, you've done so well over the years, I wasn't entirely shocked by the positive news. You know, knowing that the library already does robust children or young adult teen events, summer games in the summer, I was surprised that we had nearly, if you take the two responses together, kids' activities and the outdoor play space, about 15% of the respondents said we need more of that. And those were also among the top two that were mentioned when we read a list. So it was not only top of mind, which came first, but when we presented a list of proposed improvements, knowing what's already being offered, still the respondents were strongly in agreement that we want more. We would utilize more children's activities, children's spaces, and especially outdoor play space, and things like that.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm curious, the question about barriers to reading, I'm wondering how that one gets worded or phrased. Or I was thinking, like, if somebody has a baby in their house and who can't hold a book because they're a baby, like,
Sure.
is that, you know?
I can read how
Sure.
it was phrased to you. It simply said, do you or any other members of your household have trouble reading standard-sized print or holding a physical book?
Yeah, okay.
Which is very close to language that we use when pitching the library for the blind and physically and print disabled. So, because we were trying to see, like, what's our, what slice of the population identifies with those challenges. So less so about the baby.
Yeah. No, I think most people would understand what that means, but I would, I think too hard about these things sometimes.
Other questions? All right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. It was nice to finally meet you all in person instead of just being behind the scenes crunching numbers. Eli, as always, thanks for running the slideshow. And if any questions emerge over the coming days, weeks, months, do not be shy about knocking on our door. Our job is not done just because the survey is closed. So thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much.
Very much, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this slide deck will be posted to the board reports page on the About Us section so that people can review those results.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thanks a lot. Okay, next up, we have resolution to award contract for HVAC equipment maintenance and repair for 3 years with 4th and 5th year options. Yeah, go for it, Len.
Good evening. So our 5-year contract's up. We posted, we went public one time, got one response. We reposted. We asked Washtenaw Contractor Association to list the RFP on their site. They did. We were able to get a few more responses. So overall, we had 4 responses, one very low. I don't think they understood the RFP. I did reach out to them. It gave them the opportunity to correct the number. They didn't change it, so it's a very low number. So kind of rejected that one. We also have a very high number that you see all the time. And then we have the 2 really close numbers. We have our current contractor, Shambo, who understands the work. And then we have W.J. O'Neill, who has a really strong local presence. They're very comparable bids. Doing the vetting process, talking to everyone, meeting with both teams. I'm suggesting we go with W.J. O'Neill. They do the schools, they do Domino's Farms, they do things at the U, they do U of M Credit Union. I think they have every AAPS building. We see them everywhere. It's a little bit of a savings, and I'll just, really quick, their first year is $178,780. Shamball would be $185,904. They're close, but there is some savings, and if you go over 3 years and 5 years, it's probably a savings of about $30,000. But I will point out, this is a huge increase from 24, or 20 to 24. In 2020, our annual was $98,000. This past year, we were $104,000. So we're seeing that post-COVID increase we knew about. That's why we picked up the 2-year options. We knew we had a good deal, but here we are on the back end of that. So I think we had good responses, but the two that are right there, very competitive. I think we have a good local presence, and I've met with them. Everything went well, so I feel confidence. I think we take the savings.
Do you have an impression from the schools? Like, have you talked to anyone over there about the?
No, I talked to 2 of their references, and
Okay.
neither one were at neither are at the
That's-
schools.
doesn't have to be the
No,
schools.
No, but I see them at Forsyth all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Questions?
So is it really just the savings that you're looking at for that?
not really. With Shamball, we've had a great relationship, and we'll continue to use Shamball for certain things, like their fire suppression. But there, our techs, a lot of the stuff, the people you work with day to day, that makes the contract. And our folks have retired, even the service managers retired, so some of those old relationships just really aren't there. They're still really good to us, and the new people, one of their techs, I call him directly all the time, but he's also on other jobs, so we don't get him every time. That was one of the questions I asked WJ, would we have our own assigned techs? We'd get 2, and I met with them last Friday. I wanted to meet them beforehand. So the process has been really good so far, from their service manager through their techs. It felt good to know the team, and their techs are local.
That's good.
Right now, our techs come out of the metro area, which is very common, so our response time will be a little bit better. And I really think for the emergency calls, they have someone here, and they're not coming from an hour to 3 hours away,
We did have some issues with the prior contractor where there was some PM preventative maintenance that should have happened.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. And so when the equipment failed, it was on them and they replaced it. But if the PM had been done, it wouldn't have failed, we wouldn't have been without it for how long that took.
Yeah.
So that does undermine confidence when something like that happens, when that's what you're paying them for, is to do that kind of work and stay on top of those type of problems.
Yeah, like any contract, we had certain problems. They made decisions at times that I know they regretted as well, with certain techs and different things, or didn't share information like Eli said. They knew about a piece of equipment down by the time we notice it and bring it up, and now then it's a bigger issue. A lot of that was due to turnover, and again, the more we can use someone here that has a presence in Ann Arbor, I think it just serves us better, so.
We have an idiosyncratic building here with a lot of strange older
Yeah.
systems, but they're in as good condition as they can be, right? We've kept very good care of them, so this is not like a fixer-upper for a new
Yeah.
vendor, but they are walking into multiple decades of systems that are all in active use in this building. But then you go to the branches and they're all brand new, pretty much.
When contractors walk through our buildings, they're excited and they want the opportunity to work in the buildings because they have been taken care of, and especially the branches are still pretty new. And we're proactive on a lot of things. A lot of the big stuff, we've replaced pumps and motors and valves on our dime over the last 3 or 4 years in this building. And when they come through and see that, they know they're not, I said, they're not, it's not garbage, it's just old. So, but most of the buildings, they operate well, so.
Great. All right, I will read the resolution. The board resolves, 1, that the contract for HVAC equipment maintenance and repair be awarded to W.J. O'Neill Company for 3 years with 4th and 5th year options beginning July 1, 2025 at the following rates. Fiscal year 2025, $178,780. Fiscal year 2026, $184,600. Fiscal year 2027, $190,612. Fiscal year 2028, $196,816. And fiscal year 2029, $203,224. That all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? This all sounds great, Lynn.
Okay, thank you all.
Yeah, thanks. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 All those opposed? All right, we have the contract.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next up, we have the resolution to authorize the director to negotiate with the city of Ann Arbor for the purchase of air rights at Library Lane, conditioned on voter approval of ballot questions. I will read the resolution. Whereas the Ann Arbor District Library, AADL, has determined that its current downtown facility is insufficient to serve the current and future needs of its patrons, and the city of Ann Arbor owns a parcel referred to as the Library Lane parking structure adjacent to the current downtown library facility, and whereas AADL has determined it will demolish its downtown library structure and replace it with a new mixed-use building, including housing above a new downtown library featuring outdoor public space, meeting rooms, performance venues, and an incubator space for artists and small businesses. And whereas the city of Ann Arbor has placed two questions on the August 5th, 2025 ballot to repeal Section 1.4 of the city charter and to authorize the city to transfer the air rights above the Library Lane parking structure to AADL to enable the inclusion of that site as part of AADL's redevelopment project. Now, therefore, the board resolves, 1, to authorize the director to negotiate with the city of Ann Arbor for the purchase of air rights above the Library Lane parking structure should both proposals A and B of August 5th, 2025 be approved by the voters. 2, to authorize the director to take all appropriate actions to implement this resolution, including the development of all appropriate documents and agreements. 3, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Can I get a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
I'll take.
I'll take a
Silva.
second then.
Thanks, Jim. Discussion.
This is a very similar document to what was approved by City Council last week, and basically puts the city administrator and I with the approval of our respective public bodies to prepare the necessary documentation, both before and after the vote, depending on how it turns out. So there'll be some work between now and then, but for the most part, we're mostly waiting to see how the election turns out.
Great. Questions, comments?
I'll just say I'm very excited about this because we're already planning to build a new building. This just gives us more opportunity to serve the community, more opportunity for bigger, better public spaces, more integration with businesses and housing and all the things that we envision. So I can't think of a better, I'm a little biased, but I can't think of a better use of that space next door to us. I think this solves two problems at the same time in a beautiful way. I'm thrilled that this is happening.
I always like to remind people as well that this is something that's inherently popular. It's not just us anecdotally having folks coming up to us and saying that we love the library. We now have repeated survey data that shows that the expansion of library services, better use of public space, as well as a robust network of people who care within our community doing good things is something that folks are interested in, because why wouldn't they be? So this is very exciting. This is very popular, and folks want this.
Yeah. Lisa, it looked like you were gonna.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I have the benefit of having some really eloquent peers here on the board. I think I'll say this will be a very enthusiastic yes from me. As a kid, some of my early experiences in my local public library were really formative. I ended up growing up and spending more than 10 years of my career working as a librarian in 3 different states. I moved to Ann Arbor in 2011, and hearing about the ideas for a new library around 2012 were part of what motivated me to get involved in community service and volunteerism. So to now be at a point where we can deliver this vision to the community and really put some action under what's been discussed for more than a decade is really exciting to me. Yeah, just thrilled. I'm really excited to see how this evolves and to really bring something wonderful to the community and to support an organization that we saw so many people regard as, excellent.
Yeah, I'll also say I'm extremely excited. Like this building, as we've seen in the presentations tonight, and we've seen over the years, is bursting at the seams in more ways than one. And so some plan needs to move forward, and I'm so happy that the city has made this proposal to us to work with them to develop that space next door and really unlock the potential of all of the space that we all own together to both get us the library we all want and deserve, and also meet other needs without asking for any new tax revenue in these proposals. So there's still a long way to go, a lot of public engagement to be had to define and realize the vision. And I'm looking forward to doing all that work with everybody in the community. It's very exciting.
Jim, do you want to say anything too? We're all so excited. You don't have to.
I've been on this board for 11 years. And I joined the board actually with encouragement from Anna. I didn't know what I was getting myself into then, but because I was so disappointed that the library wasn't able to pass a millage to build a building at that time, because I have believed for a long time. I mean, I've lived in Ann Arbor since 1998, and I've always thought that we have deserved a facility that really matched the community's enthusiasm and just appetite for social connection and hunger for information and programming and activities. And I have always been impressed with the ability of this wonderful staff to just create so many sensational opportunities for all of that. And what a wonder it will be to finally match the resource of our staff here at the library with a real structure that serves so many of those needs. So to see the momentum is really gratifying after all this time. When I joined the board at the naive age of 34, and thought this would happen so much faster. So it has also been a real education in the kind of methodical and considered work that it takes over a very long period of time to arrive at this kind of collaboration with the city in particular. I'm so happy that we were ready to collaborate in this way, and I'm so optimistic, especially after reviewing the survey, of our ability to be successful and to really begin to animate this block the way that it should be in this, our 21st century. So I'm really thrilled, obviously, and I'm looking forward to the process of, really moving this project along.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. I will just add that I've been excited about the vision for a new downtown library for as long as I've been on the board. I came onto this board hoping to help us get a new downtown library, and the idea that we could have twice as much space to build twice as much library and housing and other kinds of resources is just thrilling to me. And that's what I think this particular proposal brings us. We're building a new downtown library one way or another. We need one. We have a great plan, but the opportunities that this unlocks if we had twice as much space is why I'm really excited about these proposals this summer. So with that, all those in favor of authorizing Eli to work with the city on all of the appropriate actions and documents, assuming these proposals pass, please say yes.
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 All those opposed? It passes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eli. All right, next up, we have discussion of the proposed 2025-2026 budget.
Okay, so this appears on page 66, very last page of your packet. And so this is our draft budget. I just want to touch on a couple things here. So what this budget shows is a estimate projection of about an increase of 2.7% to tax revenue. We're actually expecting, and the data is half in. We've got half the report, the other half of it we're still waiting on, probably closer to 5 or even 5.5%. So we're looking at putting more money back in this. Once we took all of the supervisors and all the managers' requests and put them all in the budget, we had about a $600,000 hole between planned expenditures and revenues. So for this draft of the budget, because we were not yet ready to settle on a revenue projection, we took about $500,000 out of the capital outlays. So you can see now capital outlays as it is a higher number, but there is one thing in there that is different, which is we are making a change to how we account for capital outlays, mostly about the line between what's capitalized and what isn't capitalized. There are smaller purchases that are below the capitalization threshold that we won't be capitalizing, but we're still considering them durable equipment purchases. So all that stuff is going to show up under capital outlays. So it's not, the original $1.5 million request includes like 250 that used to be in a different line, right? So it's not as large of an increase as it initially appears. We'll have a little bit more information of that when we bring you the final budget for approval next month. Overall, we're in very good shape here. We are seeing a small increase in personnel costs, a couple of new positions that are expected. And then mostly adjusting things to where we've been. You can see we've got a decrease to programming based on what we talked about before, but not a substantial one, going from about $2 million to about 1.9. So making a small adjustment to that. We don't expect that to make any actual impact on specific programs, because it's not really a cut, it's more adjusting it to what we're actually using, right? And I think that those are really the main things. We're increasing our utilities, we're increasing repairs and maintenance, increasing opportunities for training and travel. We've had more utilization of that this year, which is great to see. So we're increasing that a little bit. But mostly, we will also no longer have the archives. The archives' former rented space was in the current year's budget, is not in the next year's budget. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the major changes here that you might want to know about. And when we get to the end of this fiscal year, how much the actual surplus is, then we'll decide. Once the audited numbers have been received in September or October, then we'll be bringing to the board a request to transfer the surplus into the capital fund so we continue to accrue dollars for a potential project in the capital fund. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions about the proposed budget at this stage?
Tariffs, question mark?
Question, isn't it just, right? It's pretty hard to predict how any of that is actually going to impact this stuff, right? And in most cases, it's going to be something we're going to react to as things change. We don't, a lot of program supplies come in from overseas and, small manufactured items, things like that. A lot of our big costs, less so. But it depends on what the electronics are that we're buying that year. But for the most part, a lot of the capital outlays are like about improvements and furniture and things like that aren't necessarily being sourced from overseas. But we'll have to see how it goes. We're
Like
just
books.
It's super hard to predict how that's going to impact books. So it's because the publishers make it very hard to determine what is being sourced from overseas, right? So you don't really always have a good sense of that. And then you'll see what happens to their prices, right? And then, of course, we have to see if any of this is still in place by the time that this fiscal year begins, which who knows. So we've taken the stance of we'll adapt to that as we see the actual conditions on the ground, because it's too much of a moving target to attempt to address proactively, other than the general increase across all lines in a small way as we continue to spread the increased revenue across the organization. Any other questions?
We're not voting on this yet. This is
No,
just sort of
there's
like,
no vote tonight.
Great.
This is just the first reading, and then we'll have this budget hearing, which is like its own separate mini board meeting within the board meeting at the May meeting, during which you will approve the millage rate for next year. And that's one of the things that we're missing at this moment, is what our Headley fraction
Yeah,
is.
that's my next
You know,
question.
so it's, there will be a Headley reduction this year. It doesn't look to be major, but that's the part we're still tracking down the exact calculation on, and then figuring out the various captures that come off the top of it, so we can have as clear of a revenue projection as we can.
great. All right, no other questions? Thanks, Eli.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comments?
No public comment.
Okay, in that case, tonight's meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.